What if, in one terrifying silent moment, our world was unmoored? Imagine it. 1 second the sun hangs in the sky, a familiar life-giving star. The next, it vanishes. Not behind a cloud, not in an eclipse, but gone. Earth, our home, has somehow been knocked from its orbit. It is now a rogue planet, drifting away from the warmth and light of our solar system. We are cast out into the endless cold dark of interstellar space. This is not just a longer night or a colder winter. This is a fundamental change to our very existence. The rules of life, as we have known them for billions of years, have been rewritten in an instant. The initial moments would be defined by a profound and chilling confusion. Across the globe, billions of people would witness the sun simply disappear from the midday sky. Day would turn to an absolute and impenetrable night, a blackness deeper than any we have ever known. The stars would blaze with an unfamiliar intensity, no longer washed out by the sun's glare or our atmosphere's glow. They would be our only light now. Panic would surely follow. Governments, scientists, and every person on the street would grapple with the same impossible question. What has happened? Where did our sun go? The answers would be slow to come, but the reality would be immediate and terrifying. We are alone. We are adrift. The darkness would be the first change, but it would be far from the last. Our entire planet is a heat engine, powered almost entirely by the sun. Without its constant stream of energy, the engine would begin to sputter and die. The temperature would not drop gradually over seasons, but precipitously, hour by hour. The familiar cycles of day and night, the rhythm that has governed life for all of history, would be gone forever. We would now live in a perpetual twilight, lit only by the distant cold fire of alien suns. The moon would still be with us, for a time, but it would be a dark companion, offering no reflected sunlight, visible only when it passed in front of the stellar tapestry. This event would challenge the very core of what it means to be human. Our connection to the sun is woven into our biology, our culture, and our spirit. We have worshipped it as a god, used it to mark our time, and relied upon it for the food we eat and the air we breathe. To lose it is to lose a part of ourselves. The journey ahead would be one of survival, not against a terrestrial foe, but against the unforgiving emptiness of the cosmos itself. Humanity would be forced to look inward, to find new sources of light, warmth, and hope in a world plunged into an eternal night. The age of the sun is over. The age of the stars has begun. From the perspective of a distant observer, our world would undergo a breathtaking transformation. Earth, once a vibrant blue and white marble swirling with life, would become a different kind of jewel. As it journeyed deeper into the void, its familiar colors would fade into darkness. The oceans would no longer gleam with reflected sunlight. The clouds would no longer cast soft white shadows. Our planet would become a dark sphere, a ghost of its former self, hurtling through the cosmic ocean. It would be almost invisible against the black velvet of space, a shadow among shadows, betrayed only by the pinpricks of light from its own dying cities. But our home would not be completely dark. For a time, the lights of human civilization would continue to burn brightly. From space, the continents would be traced in delicate webs of gold and white light. The great cities, Tokyo, London, New York, would shine like scattered diamonds on a dark cloth. These lights would tell a story of a species still fighting, still trying to hold back the encroaching night. They would be a testament to our presence, a final defiant beacon against the overwhelming emptiness. Yet, these lights would be fragile. As power grids failed and resources dwindled, they too would begin to flicker and die out, one by one, until only the deepest darkness remained. The stars would be our new sky. Without the sun's light to overwhelm them, and without a thick, warm atmosphere to blur their view, the heavens would ignite. The Milky Way would not be a faint milky band, but a brilliant textured river of light, stretching from horizon to horizon. Nebulae would glow with faint ethereal colors. Distant galaxies would be visible as tiny smudges of light. We would see the universe with a clarity that no astronomer on the old Earth could have ever imagined. Our sky would become a map of our journey, the constellations shifting slowly as we moved through the galaxy. It would be a terrifyingly beautiful sight, a constant reminder of both our isolation and the sheer vastness of the cosmos we now roamed. This new view would change our perspective forever. We would no longer be the center of a familiar solar system, but a tiny vessel in an infinite ocean. The constellations we knew would slowly distort over millennia, our familiar signposts fading as we traveled farther from home. Our sense of place in the universe would be shattered and then rebuilt. We would be true interstellar travelers, not by choice but by cosmic accident. Our planet, once a cradle of life, would become our spaceship, and its destination would be entirely unknown, written only in the cold, distant light of the stars ahead. The darkness would be swift, but the cold would be relentless. With our primary heat source gone, the Earth's surface temperature would begin to plummet. Within the first week, the average global temperature would drop below freezing, to 0 degrees Celsius. The change would be most dramatic in the deserts and tropics, places that have never known a true frost. Lush rainforests would be coated in a layer of glistening ice. Warm, sandy beaches would become frozen landscapes. We would have entered a new global ice age, but one far more extreme than any our planet has experienced in its past. This rapid cooling would have a catastrophic effect on our planet's water. The oceans, vast reservoirs of thermal energy, would resist the cold for a time. But eventually, the surface would begin to freeze. At first, thin sheets of ice would form along the coastlines, spreading outward day by day. Within a year or two, a thick crust of ice, perhaps several meters deep, would cover the entire surface of the world's oceans. This would effectively seal the liquid water below from the cold above, creating a dark subglacial ocean. Life in the deep sea, near hydrothermal vents, might continue for a time, but the surface world would be locked in ice. The most dramatic change would happen to our atmosphere. As the temperature continued its free fall, dropping towards -100 and then -200 degrees Celsius, the very air we breathe would begin to change. First, the water vapor would freeze out completely, ending all clouds and precipitation. Then, carbon dioxide would turn to solid dry ice, snowing down onto the frozen surface. Finally, in the unimaginable cold of deep space, nitrogen and oxygen themselves would liquefy and then freeze. Our sky would literally fall to the ground as a layer of nitrogen and oxygen snow, leaving the planet in a near-perfect vacuum. This process would render the surface of the Earth utterly uninhabitable. Without an atmosphere, there would be no air pressure and no protection from cosmic radiation. Any life left on the surface would be extinguished. The world would become a silent, frozen ball of rock and ice. Its once active geology and vibrant weather systems would cease. The wind would stop blowing. The rains would stop falling. Earth would become a static monument, a cryogenic tomb preserving the remnants of a world that was once teeming with life, now encased in a shell of frozen air. Even as the surface freezes into an icy wasteland, a source of heat would remain. Deep within the Earth, a powerful engine continues to churn. The planet's core, a sphere of molten iron as hot as the surface of the Sun, is constantly generating heat through the slow decay of radioactive elements. This process, which drives plate tectonics and volcanoes, has been happening for billions of years. It is a faint warmth compared to the Sun's blaze, but in our new reality, it would become our single greatest source of hope. This geothermal energy would be the key to our survival in the long, cold night. To harness this energy, humanity would have to embark on the greatest engineering project in its history. We would need to drill deep into the Earth's crust, far deeper than we have ever gone before. We would be searching for pockets of intense heat, tapping into the planet's internal furnace to generate electricity and provide warmth. Geothermal power plants would become the lifeblood of our new civilization. These facilities would allow us to power our lights, run our life support systems, and create pockets of warmth where life could continue. Our survival would no longer depend on looking up at the sky, but on digging down into the ground beneath our feet. Alongside geothermal energy, another powerful force could be our savior, the atom. Nuclear power, once a source of both promise and fear, would become an essential tool. Existing nuclear power plants could provide a significant amount of energy for decades, but their fuel is finite. The future would lie in developing new generations of nuclear reactors, perhaps even achieving the dream of nuclear fusion. A controlled fusion reaction could provide a nearly limitless supply of clean energy, mimicking the process that powers the very stars we now travel among. Our ability to master the atom would directly determine our ability to endure the cold of deep space. These power sources would form the foundation of our new world. They would be the hearths around which the last embers of humanity would gather. The challenge would be immense. Building and maintaining these complex systems in a dying world would require unprecedented cooperation and ingenuity. We would need to secure existing facilities, mine for new radioactive fuel, and push the boundaries of science and engineering. The warmth from below and the power of the atom would be our final shields against the absolute zero of space. They would be the engines that power our lifeboat as we drift through the darkness. The sudden plunge into darkness would spell a swift and certain end for the vast majority of life on Earth. The foundation of nearly every ecosystem on our planet is photosynthesis. Plants, algae, and phytoplankton use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into energy, creating the food that sustains almost all other life. When the sun disappears, this fundamental process would grind to a halt. The world's forests, grasslands, and fields would begin to die. The green engine of our planet would shut down, and the intricate web of life it supports would start to unravel with terrifying speed. For the animal kingdom, the consequences would be catastrophic. Herbivores, from the smallest insects to the largest elephants, would find their food sources vanishing. As the plants withered and died, a great famine would sweep across the globe. Predators who hunt these herbivores would soon follow them into starvation. The entire food chain, built over millions of years of sunshine, would collapse in a matter of months. The sounds of the wild, the birdsong, the buzzing of insects, the calls of mammals, would fall silent. The planet's rich biodiversity would be wiped out, leaving only the hardiest of microbes and perhaps a few deep-sea creatures in its wake. Human agriculture would face the same fate. Our global food system is a massive sun-powered machine. Without sunlight, all conventional farming would become impossible. The great breadbaskets of the world would become frozen wastelands. Crops would fail instantly, and livestock, dependent on those crops, would perish. The immediate challenge for humanity would be securing the world's existing food supplies. Warehouses, silos, and grocery stores would become critical resources, but they would be finite. This would trigger a desperate race against time to create a new way of producing food, one that does not rely on the light of a distant, forgotten star. Daily life would be altered in ways we can barely comprehend. The natural world, our constant companion, would be gone. There would be no more walks in the park, no more vibrant gardens, no more sun-drenched beaches. The beauty and solace we draw from nature would become a memory. Our connection to the planet would be severed. We would become a species living in artificial bubbles, sustained by technology, completely isolated from the frozen dead world outside. The psychological toll of this loss would be immense, a deep and abiding grief for the green and living world we once called home. With the surface of the Earth becoming an uninhabitable, frozen desert, humanity's only path to survival would be to go down. We would have to abandon the surface world and build our new homes deep within the Earth's crust. This would not be a simple matter of digging a few bunkers. We would need to construct vast, self-sustaining underground cities, shielded from the deadly cold and vacuum above by kilometers of rock. These subterranean habitats would become the last arcs of human civilization, carrying the survivors on their long journey through the interstellar night. These cities would have to be complete ecosystems, capable of supporting thousands, perhaps millions of people for generations. They would be marvels of engineering, centered around the geothermal vents and nuclear reactors that provide their power. Life support systems would recycle air and water with near-perfect efficiency. Food would be grown not in open fields, but in massive hydroponic and aeroponic farms. These vertical farms would be illuminated by powerful full-spectrum LED lights, mimicking the sunlight our world has lost. We would cultivate new strains of crops, optimized for these artificial conditions, to feed our buried population. The design of these cities would need to account for the psychological well-being of their inhabitants. Living entirely underground, without natural light or open spaces, would be a tremendous strain. Architects and engineers would need to create large open caverns to simulate the feeling of a sky. Parks with genetically engineered plants and artificial sunlight would provide spaces for recreation and a connection to a manufactured form of nature. Art, music, and culture would be more important than ever, providing a sense of identity and purpose for a people who have lost their world. These cities would be more than just shelters. They would have to be homes. Building this new world would require a global effort of unprecedented scale. The nations of the world would have to set aside their differences and pool their resources, knowledge, and people. The best scientists, engineers, and planners would lead the way, coordinating the construction of these subterranean sanctuaries. It would be a race against the clock, a desperate struggle to build our lifeboats before the old world freezes completely. The survival of our species would depend not on weapons or wealth, but on our ability to cooperate and innovate in the face of the ultimate catastrophe. In the deep subterranean cities, the very concept of time would be transformed. For all of human history, our lives have been dictated by the rising and setting of the sun. The 24-hour cycle of day and night is embedded in our biology, governing our sleep, our work, and our social rhythms. Without the sun, this natural clock would be gone. Time would become an artificial construct, maintained by the glowing screens and humming machines of our new world. The city's leaders would have to impose a new rhythm, a cycle of simulated day and night to keep society functioning and to preserve the sanity of its people. Life would be lived under a permanent artificial sky. The ceilings of the great caverns would be fitted with vast arrays of lights, programmed to brighten and dim in a 24-hour cycle. They would shift in color, from a bright, cool midday white to a warm, soft evening glow, before fading to darkness for a designated night. This would help regulate the circadian rhythms of the population, providing a sense of normalcy in a profoundly abnormal environment. But everyone would know it was a simulation. The real sky, the one with the real sun, would be a distant memory, a story told to children about a lost paradise. Social structures would have to adapt dramatically. With space and resources at a premium, every aspect of life would be carefully managed. Population size would be strictly controlled. Professions would be assigned based on the needs of the city, with a heavy emphasis on engineering, biology, geology, and medicine. The community would become paramount, with individual desires often taking a backseat to the collective good. The survival of the Ark would depend on every single person performing their role flawlessly. It would be a highly organized and perhaps highly restrictive way of life. Generations would be born and raised in this new world, knowing only the rock above and the artificial light within. For them, the surface world would be a myth, a dangerous and forbidden place from the history books. They would hear stories of blue skies, warm sunshine, and vast oceans, but these concepts would be as abstract as dragons or magic. Their reality would be the hum of the life support systems, the glow of the hydroponic farms, and the solid, reassuring presence of the city around them. They would be a new kind of human, the children of the dark, carrying the legacy of a sunlit past into an unknown future. As Earth drifts through the vast emptiness between the stars, it would become a true generation ship. Our planet, once a stationary home, is now a vessel on an epic and unintentional voyage. This journey would be incredibly slow by human standards. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is over 4 light-years away. Even traveling at the speed of our old orbit, it would take our rogue planet more than 100,000 years to cover that distance. The journey to a potentially habitable new star system would likely take millions of years. During this immense span of time, humanity, tucked away in its subterranean cities, would evolve. Our culture, our technology, and perhaps even our biology would change. The stories of the sun and the blue sky would fade from living memory into ancient legend. New myths and histories would be written, centered on the Great Drift, the construction of the underground cities, and the heroes who made survival possible. The purpose of their existence would shift from mere survival to the preservation of knowledge and the continuation of the journey. They would become the keepers of a planetary ark. The long voyage would not be without its own perils. Even in the emptiness of interstellar space, there are dangers. Our planet could pass through clouds of dust and gas that could affect our trajectory. We could be struck by rogue asteroids or comets, their impacts unmitigated by a thick atmosphere. The greatest danger, however, might come from within. Over thousands of generations, social structures could break down. Wars could be fought over resources. Knowledge could be lost. The complex technology keeping the cities alive could fail. The human spirit itself might falter in the face of such a long and seemingly endless night. Yet, this journey would also offer a unique opportunity. As our planet ship traveled, our astronomers would have a front-row seat to the wonders of the galaxy. They would study stars and planets up close, passing through nebulae and star clusters. They could gather data and knowledge about the universe that was impossible to obtain from our old, fixed position. Humanity would become true galactic explorers, charting the unknown from the deck of our wandering world. This quest for knowledge could become a new purpose, a new reason to endure, driving our descendants to keep the lights on and the dream of a new home alive. The ultimate question that would haunt the generations of underground dwellers is, could this journey ever end? Is it possible for our rogue Earth to find a new home? The chances are astronomically small, but not zero. For our planet to become habitable again, it would need to be captured by the gravitational pull of another star. It would have to settle into a stable orbit within that star's habitable zone, the Goldilocks region where temperatures are just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. This would be a cosmic hole-in-one, a maneuver of incredible precision and luck. If such a miracle were to occur, the process of reawakening the Earth would be slow and arduous. As the planet spiraled closer to its new sun, the surface would begin to warm. The frozen atmosphere of nitrogen and oxygen would sublimate, turning from a solid ice back into a gas. The great ice sheets covering the oceans would slowly melt over centuries, revealing the dark water below. The planet's weather systems would restart, and clouds would once again fill the sky. It would be a long, turbulent and violent spring, as the planet came back to life after its long cryogenic sleep. For the humans emerging from their underground cities, it would be like stepping onto an alien world. They would be the first to feel natural sunlight on their skin and breathe the air of an open sky. They would have to reseed the barren continents with life they had preserved in genetic banks for millennia. They would begin the monumental task of rebuilding a global ecosystem from scratch. It would be the work of countless generations, a project of planetary engineering far beyond anything our own civilization has ever attempted. They would be the gardeners of a new Eden. So, while the scenario of our Earth being cast into darkness is one of the most terrifying imaginable, it does not have to be an ending. It could be the beginning of a new chapter in the human story. It is a story of resilience, of ingenuity, and of the unbreakable will to survive. It forces us to ask what truly makes us human. Is it the ground beneath our feet and the sun in our sky? Or is it our ability to dream, to build and to carry the light of consciousness with us, no matter how deep the darkness becomes? Our journey through the wormhole of this idea leaves us with a profound sense of hope. Even if we lost our sun, we might find that the capacity to create a new dawn lies within us all along.